So welcome everyone to this webinar about how you can conduct eKYC over a chatbot. This is a webinar that we've actually been thinking about for some time now because some of our customers use their chatbots for this purpose. And our customer success team actually recommended that we host this because they thought it might be a valuable insight to share with the broader public. So let's get started. As always with these webinars, we like to begin with introductions, just so that you guys know who your hosts are, who's giving you the information on this webinar. To begin with, I'm Arnav. I'm the regular host of these webinars. So if you're a repeat viewer, you will know me. But for the newer attendees, I'm a content marketer over here at TARS. And essentially what that means is my job is to create webinars, guides, blog posts just like this to help you guys get the most out of your customer experience, make it as efficient and as frictionless as possible using chatbots. And today I am pleased to be joined by Gaurav Samdaria from Karza Technologies. Gaurav, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? You'll probably do a better job than I ever would.
Sure. Thanks a ton, Arnav. Hi, everyone who's attending. I'm Gaurav. I'm one of the co-founders here at Karza Technologies. Just a quick background about the company as well as me. So we are a 5.5-year-old startup, primarily working with BFSI clients. In fact, today we just crossed our 200th employee milestone as well as 250 plus clients milestone simultaneously. So it's a great day for us as well today. Fundamentally, what we do is enabling digitization across onboarding, underwriting, or even basically towards the recovery side of things. Personally, academically, I'm a CA, CS, CFA, as well as an FRM. I have been co-founder before this for another digital media agency and have worked previously in business valuations as well as a bit of M&A for a bunch of companies. Thanks a lot, Arnav, for having me over, and thanks to the entire teams at TARS for the opportunity.
Of course, thank you for joining us. This would not have been possible without you guys' support. So a little bit about TARS really quick. We have been around since 2016, helping enterprises digitize and automate their existing processes using chatbots. And essentially what that means is it depends on what sort of team we're working with, but if you're a customer support team, we help you automate your tickets. If you're a marketing team, we help you increase your conversion rate by automating marketing conversations that you might have. And if you're a customer experience person, we help you automate high friction processes like KYC, which is why we are on this webinar today. But enough with the intros. That's who we are. Let's get into what we are discussing today. Broadly speaking, we have divided this webinar up into 4 parts. We're first going to establish what the problem is with the existing KYC process. I'm sure all of you guys already know what the problems are with the KYC process. That's why you guys are on this webinar today. But I find that establishing the context when we're talking about a solution is always good because it helps us understand better why the solution works. Next, in section 2, we are going to talk about how chatbots and automation can address some of the problems that we discussed in section 1. Finally, in sections 3 and 4, we are going to move into a little bit more of a practical direction where we're actually going to talk about what it looks like to have a chatbot implemented into your existing KYC flows. So in section 3, we'll talk about the distribution channels that you can use for your chatbots. And then in section 4, we'll go through a short demo to show you guys what it actually looks like to have a KYC chatbot, to have a KYC chatbot deployed into your customer experience workflows. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Gaurav to take us through this first section where he's going to give us a little bit of the context around the existing problems with the current KYC process.
Sure. So thanks, Arnav. All right. So for most of the attendees, obviously KYC is a complicated problem, right? Because it's where you have a convergence of compliance, you have a convergence of legal, you have almost on a monthly basis some or the other new regulation coming in from RBI, as well as, of course, there is this mixed diaphora, right? Like basically what is applicable to a bank, what's applicable to an NBFC, a fintech, or any other service provider. Now, traditionally, the processes were always manual, right? right? You had the layer of OSV. I think in around 2016 is where Aadhaar came around with eKYC, yes, no verifications, which sort of helped uproot a significant amount of problem. But then again, obviously, with the entire, I would say, cognizance around privacy, the governments understood that, okay, this was maybe a little bit too early. And which is where today eKYC as a particular API has been given only to banks and a bunch of other institutions accredited under IRDAI or SEBI. But that still solves for, like, say, there are 132 scheduled commercial banks, right? What about the remaining of the population? So, which is where the core problem lies, that, okay, hey, I have offline KYC, I have QR code, I need to look at other masking. Within QR code, there are, like, what is the data generation and so on and so forth. Now, fundamentally on a slideshow, it looks great, right? That, okay, I have so many options. So that in fact looks as the problem of abundance. But at the heart of it, ultimately, it is the customer experience that everyone is striving towards, right? That, okay, how do I sort of streamline into that one simple flow? I still remember way back in our school days, we were taught that how computer, the generations, right, have to evolve over a period of time, wherein the fifth, I think the generation of the languages are going to be more fluid. And which is where we see that, organizations like TARS as well as APIs provided by Karza can actually enable the a KYC onboarding process to be more of a conversation, and at the same time keeping in mind almost each and every facet related to compliance, legal, or any other area that is required, whether it be your infosec, whether it be consent, which will also become a critical area going forward once the draft data privacy bill becomes a reality as well. So this is basically what the holistic problem statement has been. And of course, now that technology has taken over in a very big way, uh, we are sort of now helping simplify this process with partners such as stars.
Thanks for that context, Gaurav. I always find that, as I mentioned earlier, I always find that the context really helps us understand better why the solution works the way that it does. So with that in mind, with those problems in mind, with those sort of hurdles that exist in the KYC process in mind, let's take a look at how chatbots can actually be used to improve the process and address some of the problems that Gaurav was talking about. So the first two things that we need to establish to understand how chatbots work in this context is we need to get two concepts out of the way. The first is we need to reframe how we think of the KYC process from a customer's standpoint, and second, we need to understand. We need to reframe our understanding of what chatbots are, because there's a lot of misconceptions around it. At least that's what we found interacting with businesses. So first, from the user's perspective, if you abstract what the KYC process looks like when they are interacting with it on their screens, on their phones, on their laptops, it's nothing more than the information collection process as far as they are concerned. Now, on the back end, we obviously know that the reason the KYC process is happening is to stay in compliance. And on the back end, essentially what is happening is we're verifying the identity so that you know who your customer is. But when the user is interacting with a KYC process on their screen, what they are essentially doing, if they're doing it online, is sending you information so that you can legally provide them with a service. Now, the KYC process is not something that most customers want to go through. They really want the end product that you're giving them after the KYC process is done. This is just a standard bureaucratic information collection process that they have to go through to get the service at the end. And if we want to simplify it even further, we can essentially boil it down to a form filling process, because even if you make it look a little nicer, even if you slap a bit of paint on it, the process of sharing information with a company online is essentially going to boil down to someone filling out a bunch of fields on their screen in a form and uploading documents into a form field. Essentially, there are some places where it deviates from that, but on the whole, we can abstract the KYC process from the user's perspective to essentially being an extended form filling process that they fill out so that they can legally use a service. Now, let's keep that in mind. Let's think of the KYC process as a form filling process, and let's keep that in mind and move on to the second concept that we were going to talk about today, which is what is a chatbot. Now, most people, when they hear the term chatbot, their mind automatically goes to AI. They think that chatbots are going to replace human beings. They can speak exactly like human beings, they can emulate human beings, and they can automate every single conversation that a human agent would otherwise have. I find this definition to be too broad. And the reason I find it to be too broad is because it sort of overpromises. Chatbots are not really at the point where they can replace every conversation that a human agent has. And two, because they don't really tell you what the value of a chatbot is. And when you don't have that in mind when you're building a chatbot, it usually results in a subpar end result. So the functional definition that we like to use at TARS when we're thinking about chatbots, especially in the context of processes like KYC, is to think of a chatbot like a conversational form to collect information from your leads, your prospects, and your customers. Now, we've used the term conversational form over here, and in the previous section, we talked about how the KYC process from the user's perspective is essentially a form filling process. So you can see how these two concepts combine with each other to give us the idea of using chatbots for the KYC process. Essentially, what we are proposing as a solution to the high friction KYC process is to administer it through a chatbot. So instead of collecting all of the information and the documents you need to verify a user's identity, to complete the KYC process through a regular form or a graphical user interface like you're doing right now, we are proposing that you do the same thing through a chatbot. And what that essentially means is instead of having a form where people fill out fields, they're having a chat conversation with you where they share the same information with you. Now, the natural next question that most people have at this point when we're talking to them about this is, why are chatbots better? You already have your existing workflows in place to collect all of this information. They're already hooked up to all of your APIs. Ideally, you're using Karza to verify people's documents. Why do you want to invest all of this effort into making the switch to a different solution if it achieves the exact same outcome at the end of it? And that's essentially what we think about every single day at TARS. And we've boiled it down to three basic advantages. The first one is that chatbots are considerably better to use on mobile than regular forms and landing pages. Now, as customers ourselves, because I'm sure we have gone through the process ourselves, we know that using landing pages, using web pages on your phone is not a pleasant experience, especially using forms on your phone. It's not a pleasant experience. Using forms on your desktop is also not particularly pleasant, but when you squeeze all of that information down onto a smaller screen size, it really diminishes the experience even further. And chatbots don't suffer from this problem because chat interfaces are built for the mobile experience from the ground up. If you think of apps like WhatsApp and now Signal and Telegram, or even regular SMS, if you think about the interface and the way it was designed with the mobile user in mind first. And it really boils down to small things. So I have my phone over here. If you think about the way you interact with a form, you tap all over the screen to tap on the fields. But with a chatbot, all you have to do is tap at the bottom where the keyboard is, where your thumb naturally sits. So it's really, if you think about the chat interface, it was built with the mobile user in mind, and that gives it a little bit of an edge on mobile screens over regular graphical user interfaces. The second advantage that chatbots have related to the first one is that they're more intuitive than your existing graphical user interfaces. Now, we might take it for granted that people know how to interact with forms online, but a lot of people still struggle with using graphical user interfaces online. And you won't have that problem at all with the chatbot because everyone is already primed to use a chat interface because they use WhatsApp every single day to talk to their friends and family. I mean, if you look at the four most popular messaging apps in the world, they have over 4 billion users, which is over half the world's population. You're never going to have a problem where someone lands on your chatbot KYC process and says, this looks a little bit daunting for me. I don't know how to continue the conversation. I don't know if I want to continue the conversation because it's extremely frictionless for them to do it. They've probably switched to this process from using WhatsApp. So they were probably using WhatsApp before. So if they switch into this process and they start using the chatbot, it's a very similar experience that they're getting. And then the third, and I think most important advantage that chatbots offer to users in the KYC process is that they are more engaging. than regular forms and regular graphical user interfaces. And when I say more engaging, essentially what I mean is if you think about how people interact with forms, how people are filling out your forms, it's a very lonely process. You essentially hand someone a form and you say, hey, this is the KYC process, go through it, fill out all the details, give us all the permissions, upload all of your documents, and then we'll give you service at the end of it. Then you'll be our customer and we can actually provide you service. Now that experience, especially for something as bureaucratic as KYC, is a turnoff for a lot of people. That's why application abandonment, KYC is one of the leading causes of application abandonment for a lot of people, because people just, they see that process and they think about having to fill it out all on their own and upload all of those documents on their own, or sign or at least like give permission to access all of those documents on their own. And a lot of people abandon their applications. With chatbots, you're sort of flipping the script on that. What you are essentially doing is you're taking this bureaucratic form filling process and you are turning it into a customer service experience. Because now, instead of filling out a form all on your own as a customer, what you are doing is you are having a conversation with someone, or in this case, something on the other end. It's a piece of software at the end of the day, to get the process done. And what we found is that when people, even though they know there's a piece of software on the other end in the back of their mind, when they feel like they're talking to someone, it gives them the impression that the company is going that extra step to give them a customer service experience, give them a personalized customer service experience. And that added customer service experience improves the way the customer views the experience. So it helps improve customer satisfaction, but more importantly, it helps reduce the likelihood of the customer abandoning the application process in the middle, which is really, at the end of the day, what we are all trying to achieve with high friction processes like this. So now at this point, we have a pretty good sense of why chatbots have a little bit of an advantage, or I'd argue a big advantage over traditional information collection methods, which is essentially what you're trying to do with KYC. They're more engaging, they're more mobile optimized, and they're more intuitive. But we need to talk about how they actually get deployed to your existing workflows, because obviously it's nice to talk about all of these advantages, but if it's hard to integrate into your workflows, if it takes too much time and effort, then there is no sense in doing it. And the most common question that we get in this regard is, where exactly can chatbots fit into your existing workflow? Because there's a lot of confusion about what exactly chatbots are, where you can access them, etc. So we're just going to briefly go through what the distribution channels are for your chatbot, where they can integrate into your existing workflows, and then we'll jump into the live demo, which I think is the more fun part. So broadly speaking, there are 5 places where you can integrate at least a TARS chatbot into your existing workflows. And they are pretty much the same places that you already have your existing KYC processes deployed, your existing landing pages, your existing forms that you are using for KYC. The first is on your website. So someone comes on your website, they sign up for your product, or they express interest in applying for something like a savings account. Your chatbot can be embedded in there and they can be redirected to it, because at the end of the day, these chatbots are just websites under the hood. They're HTML, CSS, and JavaScript under the hood. They have a URL with them as well, which we'll get to in a little bit, but you can essentially you can embed that chatbot into your website so that the user can be redirected to it. They can interact with it on your website, finish the KYC process, and then be moved to the next step of the customer onboarding journey. The next place where a lot of people integrate these chatbots is through SMS. So a couple of ways you can operationalize this is, one, what some people can actually do is, if you're running SMS marketing campaigns, you can integrate a KYC workflow in your chatbot to a regular lead generation workflow, where you are at the top of the funnel and you're sort of getting their interest in your product. And you can actually send that whole chatbot over as a link in your text marketing campaigns when someone, and you can say something like, hey, are you interested in starting a savings account? If they click on the link and they express interest, your chatbot can walk them through the entire flow of applying for that savings account and administer the KYC process within the chat, just in a regular Chrome window or in a regular Safari window, whichever browser you're using, because again, you're just sharing a link to the chatbot. With email, it's a similar story. You can send an email with the chatbot link to your customers and get them to fill it out that way. Again, you can use it in your marketing campaigns. And one thing I didn't mention in SMS, you can actually use it to bring people back. So if you have someone's phone number and they've abandoned an application or they've stopped it at some point, you can send them the chatbot link and say, hey, do you want to restart your application? They can jump into the chatbot and complete it from where they left off. Another popular distribution channel is in-app, of course. So if you have an existing app and you want your app users to be able to apply for something like this, you can definitely do that. Yeah, you can do that by embedding the chatbot into your app. The next place where you can integrate chatbots, though this is a little bit more, this is coming. I don't think we have the. Actually, I believe we do have the ability to do this right now, but you can also deploy TARS chatbots to your. You can deploy TARS chatbots to your to WhatsApp, and in the process, administer KYC through a WhatsApp chatbot, which is a super popular channel for obviously a lot of customers. So you can meet your customers where they are and actually administer the KYC process to them through WhatsApp. Now, with that, we've essentially covered all of the distribution channels that we have for eKYC chatbot, and we can actually move on to the live demo part of this webinar. So I'm going to switch off my slides right now, and then we can. So let me stop sharing with you guys, and we can now switch over to the live demo part of this webinar. So over here, we have an eKYC chatbot. We have an eKYC chatbot open. Just a second. Sorry, just a second. We seem to be having some technical issues over here. So I'm just getting that sorted out, and then we can continue. Okay, so let's move on with the demo right now. I think we have it sorted over here. So this is what a eKYC chatbot actually looks like. And the way we've set up this chatbot over here is it does something, it does a very simple eKYC process, which is it essentially what this chatbot does is it verifies your PAN information and verifies your Aadhaar information within the chat. You can obviously customize this, and we'll get into how exactly you can customize the workflow in just a minute. But we'll first go through this workflow to see what it looks like for the customer on their screen, and then we'll jump into the backend where you can see what it actually looks like for your team if they want to optimize it for your own workflow and add all of the specifics that you need for your eKYC process. So first, we are going to obviously click Start over here. This is obviously a fictional bank. This is Stars Bank Limited over here. Let me share my screen. So over here, we have TARS Bank Limited. Just realized that I wasn't sharing my screen. So the first thing that we want to do is obviously start the eKYC process. So to begin with, let's it's going to give us a checklist over here where it's going to ask for PAN and a mobile. It's going to make sure that we as a user have a PAN and a mobile linked Aadhaar. We're going to say that we have both of these items. It's going to say great, and then it's going to start the eKYC process. So over here, we are going to give it a phone number. It is going to send us an OTP, and we obviously have a test OTP over here, so just so that we don't expose our phone number to the public. But over here, we have dropped an OTP. It was able to verify our OTP using the Karza API, which was extremely easy to integrate, by the way. So we appreciate that, Gaurav. Next, it's going to need to verify that we have a valid PAN. So what we're going to have to do is give it a PAN over here. And over here, I'm going to give it a test PAN again, because I don't want to share my actual PAN publicly. So we're going to share a test PAN number over here, but I'll jump into the backend and show you what it actually looks like to verify an actual PAN. It was able to verify my PAN number, and now it is going to walk me through the flow of accessing my Aadhaar and using that to complete the KYC process. Now, obviously, we need to get explicit consent from the user to access access our Aadhaar, access our Aadhaar. So over here, the user has to give that consent. So over here, I'm going to go ahead and say I give TARS Bank Limited permission to access my Aadhaar number. And the next thing it's going to do is it's going to ask us to accept the terms of service of TARS Bank Limited. So we are going to go ahead and do that, obviously. I've never really applied for a service where I've had to where I've not accepted the terms of service. But we agreed to the terms of service, and now it is going to ask us to give our Aadhaar so that it can send an OTP to our Aadhaar linked phone number to complete the KYC process. So now over here, I'm going to give it an Aadhaar number. And as you can see, the Aadhaar number has been masked. This is for privacy, obviously, so that the user's Aadhaar isn't exposed on the screen. So once we send this Aadhaar number over, it is going to send an OTP to our Aadhaar linked phone number. And we are going to insert that OTP over here in the chat. Once we do that, it's going to say we're all set. The KYC process is complete. Welcome to the TARS Bank family. And one of our customer relations managers will be with you to give you more information. So that is what the user will experience on their end. It's extremely frictionless. They've administered the whole process through a chat. Now let's take a look at what happens behind the scenes on the back end to give you guys a sense of what is going on over here. So this is what the back end of this chatbot looks like. A lot of people think that building a chatbot is an extremely technical endeavor, that you need to know how to code, that you need to be an engineer to do it. But the way that we've actually built our platform is for it to be used by teams that are not technical teams, so that it can be used by a customer experience team, it can be used by a marketing team, it can be used by a customer support team. To make changes and to build out this entire flow. So as you can see over here, we have the entire flow that we just interacted constructed as a workflow over here, as a flow chart. And all you need to do is be able to create a flow chart like this to essentially create your entire KYC process. So the one we went through over here was extremely basic. It had just PAN and Aadhaar. But if you want to collect more details, which obviously a lot of you might want to do, all you need to do is add more blocks to this flow. So what we can do is, for example, over here, we can add another block. And if we join that into the flow over here, it will be added. And all you need to do to add the specific details that you want to collect is jump into the block, change the messages, change the input type, and you can be connected to the flow. You'll also notice over here that we have these specific blocks over here, which have the sort of connected symbol on them. These blocks over here are where the actual API calls are being made to verify the details that the user is sending us. So this is actually where we got help from the Karza team to to improve the user experience, or to make the chatbot functional. So over here, essentially what is happening on the back end of this flow when we shared our PAN details and when we shared our phone number. So let's take this phone number, for example. We shared a phone number over here. What is essentially happening is the chatbot is collecting a phone number. And then what it's doing in the next block is it is sending an OTP to that phone number using the Karza API. And then we are asking the user to share that OTP again with us down here, where we say, when you receive the OTP, please share it with us below. And then we do the same. Then we do the same thing with the Karza API, where we ensure that we have the where we ensure that the OTP that they've shared is the correct one. Based on whether the OTP is correct or not, we can branch them off in different directions. So over here, if the OTP is correct, we move them to the next step, which is asking them for PAN. If the OTP is not correct, we go back to asking them to share the correct OTP. Similarly, with the PAN, again, we ask them for the PAN, and then over here in this API step, we verify the PAN using the Karza API. And with the Aadhaar as well, we check their consent, we check their Aadhaar OTP, we send them an Aadhaar OTP here, and then we verify their OTP at the end. That's essentially the whole flow that a user would go through yeah. So that's essentially the whole flow that a user goes through to
Complete their KYC.
complete the KYC process. Yeah, sorry. Thanks for the help over there, Gaurav. I got a little distracted by some messages that my colleagues were sending me in the chat over here. And this is the process that your team would go through to build out a flow like this for your workflow. And with that, I think we can end the presentation part of it and actually open this up for questions. I had noticed that we had a bit of an eventful chat this whole webinar, but thankfully we got my trusty colleague Abhilash over here to sort that out. So we should be good now, and you should be able to share. You should be able to share your Q&As in the chat section of the webinar. So if you guys have any questions at this point, you guys can share that with us in the chat section or in the Q&A section as well. And for those of you who need to leave early, these are our contact details. You can get in touch with us through any of these channels if you guys have any additional questions or you want to explore how this works further. So with that, we will move to the questions. So what about video KYC? So video KYC, that's a good question. Essentially, as we discussed over here, the builder itself, the interface is extensible. So you can add, if you have a video KYC API that you're already using, you can integrate that into your chatbots as well over here.
So Arnav, just to fill in the gap there, so what can happen is that once the customer's PAN and Aadhaar have been verified, right? What will happen is that within the chat itself, we can actually trigger the video to open. At the backend, obviously, you'll have your agent dashboard, which will prompt that, okay, the user has just completed a PAN and Aadhaar, and immediately for the user within that same chat window, the video can technically be triggered. Now, for the user, he is talking to the agent, whereas at the backend, the agent is following their traditional RBI laid down guidelines in terms of verifying that yes, the customer is actually in India. Taking a liveness check by asking random questions. We've already anyways collected the PAN, but within the video, the customer can actually show them the PAN card as well in case if the video KYC needs to be triggered. This is obviously, again, it works in the exact same flow as Arnav showed for integrating PAN and Aadhaar, where our video API, video as a service API, or the complete video KYC suite can also be integrated within this chatbot.
Right.
I also see a second question, which is what is actually responded? What is the response that you get for PAN and Aadhaar, right? That's actually a great question. So what happens is for PAN, it's almost like the standard piece, right? Where you give us a PAN and we'll give you back the name of the person. However, for Aadhaar, the specific OTP flow that was shown, it has two branches. If you're a bank, obviously your InfoSec or your compliance team will ask you to integrate their eKYC API pipeline. Having said that, both for banks as well as NBFCs, one of the pieces that Karza has actually deployed and what you saw in the demo was the offline XML KYC. What happens, the biggest advantage with the offline XML KYC is that unlike the traditional, like say a Kotak 811 or these the quick to open bank accounts, the XML is considered as a full KYC, right? And this is something that you can obviously re-verify with your compliance teams. But what happens is that what we are effectively doing is taking the consent of the customer in order to be able to download their complete XML file, which contains the customer's face, their name, their address, their date of birth, gender, as well as hashed mobile and email IDs. Uh, Another piece is, of course, in case if you don't have a mobile linked Aadhaar, which is where there are two questions that I see from Shweta and Prashant, that in case if you don't have a mobile linked Aadhaar, the customer can actually simply take a picture of their PAN card and the Aadhaar card, which gets uploaded. At the same time, there is a QR code reading SDK that can actually be integrated within the chatbot. Fun fact, there is an XML file that is already present within the QR code as well. So what happens is, by using Karza's secure QR code reader for Aadhaar, which is actually UIDI compliant as well, we effectively extract the XML file in order to re-verify the exact same details that you would traditionally do using the OTP process. So I hope that answers the question in terms of the response for PAN Aadhaar, the PDF copy of the Aadhaar, as well as if the Aadhaar is not mobile linked. Another piece is, in case if you're uploading the PDF copy of the Aadhaar, you technically need to mask the first 8 digits as well. So what Karza will be doing is that when the customer is sending the Aadhaar card, we will auto detect that yes, this is an Aadhaar, mask the first 8 digits, and send you back at the back end. So the customer, they just click the photo and it's done. But at the back end, the bank actually receives a PMLA compliant copy of the Aadhaar card as well. Yeah, sorry, Arnav, do you have anything to add for these specific points?
No, I think you pretty much covered it all.
Sure. Yeah. So I also read one question that you should probably answer is if this also supports regional languages, as well as if there is an audit trail for these chatbots, right? That okay, there was an actual interaction between the bot as well as the customer, and having that paper trail whenever RBI actually comes to
Right.
conduct their audits.
Right. So first on the regional language question, yes, we do support regional languages in our chatbots. So that should not be an issue. Or essentially, what you need to do is flip a switch in the configure section over here, and you can change the chatbot to a specific regional language. In terms of the actual messages that go into the chatbot flow, so the messages that a user sees over here, that essentially any language that your web browser can support, our chatbots can support as well. So whatever your web browser can display over here, we can display in the chatbot as well. The second question, I think, was about the trail of the interactions that users have had. So that data can be checked in our check data section, and it can also be exported as well. So over here, if I jump into the view section, you can see that we have a log of the data that of the conversation data for the conversations that users have, and we also have an export section where you can export it and then convert it into whatever format you need to send it over. I don't know if that answers your questions. If you need any more clarification on that, feel free to drop it in the Q&A section, and we
There
will.
is another question with respect to how does the document verification work in this flow, and is it possible to work with document systems? So I think part question is towards me, and the second part would be to you, Arnab. So the answer to the first question is yes. Just like PAN, Karza can effectively verify over 200 categories of documents that are supported or provided during any kind of a lending journey, right? Right from vehicle loans to say salaried personal loans. Obviously, when you're opening a saving account or any kind of a bank account, technically you just need the PAN, Aadhaar again, offline copy, and so on and so forth. You can finish the process with video, or you can even take it one step forward where you take a selfie of the customer, where we can then at the back end verify the face under Aadhaar, as well as the live selfie that's taken by the customer to reconfirm that yes, it is me who has truly uploaded the documents and that the data is actually verified. The second question is to you, Arnav, is
Yeah.
that how can the documents which are actually collected, right, whether the XML file or the copy of the PDF, can they be pushed into a data document management
Right.
system?
Right. So they absolutely can. So the way, for example, we were doing this while we were building this demo, we're integrating with the Karza API, where we were able to do where we were able to use the Karza API to do a face match after sending 2 pictures to the chatbot. Essentially, the way it works is, as I showed you, the API configuration feature where we were integrating with Karza to get the mobile OTP. You can essentially do the same thing for your documents. Any response that's collected by the user, you can send it over to your document system through an API call within the through an integration within the chatbot itself. So if I share my screen again over here, just a recap really quick, uh, where we had the API calls done over here, you can essentially send your documents the same way to whatever system you have, as long as it has an API or an integration. We also do have integrations with things like Zapier. So if your document system does link with something like Zapier, it can be sent through that as well. Moving on, we have another question here which says, what will be returned as the response to us for PAN and Aadhaar?
Sorry, I already answered that
Oh,
one.
sorry.
But yeah, I think the latest question that's coming is that can we verify DL/RC electricity bills? Yes. So technically, you can. So it's essentially any normal API of Karza can actually be integrated into this entire workflow, which is effectively the chat workflow. So what that means is that yes, in case if the customer is clicking a photo of their driving license or simply entering their vehicle number, we will be able to actually go ahead and verify those details for you as well as return the data at the backend for you to be able to consume it, let's say by virtue of an API push into your business rule engines as well, so that you can take the decisions on the fly.
Right. The next question we have here is, can TAR's chatbot be implemented in a loan mobile application? How much average time does it take to integrate? Has TAR's chatbot actually been implemented for a lending company to acquire customer KYC? So I'll answer these questions in order. So can TAR's chatbot be implemented in a loan mobile application? Yes, it can. So we do have customers who take our chatbots. As you saw over here, it's essentially just a web page over here. They can integrate this. We can integrate this web page into a mobile application. Some people have done it through WebView, I believe. How much time does it take to integrate? That is a question probably better suited towards our tech team. We would be more than happy to answer that for you after this call. If one of my team members will drop a demo link in the chat, which you can use to book a demo with us, where someone from our tech team can walk you through that. I think it would depend on the specific case, but it doesn't take too long to build the flow, and then the integration. So my colleague over here has shared a demo link in the chat. If you use that, you can book a demo with us, and we'll be more than happy to answer a question like that. And then the final question over here is, has TAR's chatbot actually been implemented for a lending company to acquire customer KYC? Yes, I believe we have. I think I'll need confirmation from our customer success team. Yeah. So we have worked with actually, I'm getting my colleagues to help me answer these questions. So someone from our tech team is here to answer the first question, and someone from our customer success and sales team has said that yes, we have integrated this for a lender. I believe it was for for auto financing. And to the question about the average time it takes to integrate, not much time to integrate in app, as it's just a web view based integration. It's a very simple and easy process. All right.
Um, so the other two questions that I see are number one, if Aadhaar is uploaded, do you mask? Yes, we do mask the Aadhaar and share it back. Do you get anything? Do you get any details from the bank account? So there, just like Karza, I mean, there are banking fetch APIs or account aggregator APIs which will come up in a big way probably in the next 6 to 12 months. So yes, for both of these purposes, technically you can use the APIs which will be integrated within the chatbot. So of course, what the compliance or your infosec teams will have a ton of questions around that. Okay, how are you going to send in the ID password and will it be secure or not? Which of course Arnav and team will be able to answer in a much more elaborated manner to those specific verticals in your organization. Another question that has been asked is that, okay, so if we are currently using a KYC ID, selfie liveness, could we add the chatbot capability to handle the part as well? And as a second alternative, so absolutely right. That basically any workflow that you have, right, where you saw the flow chart that Arnav showed you, right, that any traditional workflow which your organization may also already be using can actually effectively be replaced or have a second alternative with a chatbot. So especially with the younger crowd that you're chatting or basically trying to target, right, for say simple personal loan. The idea is that almost every millennial that we've understood hates the fact that they have to fill a form. I do vaguely remember one of the largest NBFCs had told us that almost with every additional field, they see a 10% drop off. But then, unlike a field, here it's a simple chat, right? I could chat in the way that I would usually talk, and that is where TAR sort of can actually interpret it and take the next decision that okay, this person has a mobile link to mobile Aadhaar number or not, or say, are you a salaried employee? Okay, give me your employer name, and I write Karza Tech PVT Ltd as a short form, right, which is typical for everyone. So which is where you can actually call in our backend APIs to show that okay, is the correct name Karza Technologies Private Limited? All right. If yes, do you also want to fetch your, let's say, EPFO passbook or your income tax return to answer Prashant's last question as to how can you verify income details? This is an example, of course, let's say EPF or ITR for in case if you're doing a salaried personal loan. If you're doing a business loan, then of course, then the kind of documents that you will need could be around GST and so on and so forth. But yes, fundamentally, any and every API that you would have traditionally seen of Karza or by Karza can actually be integrated in this underlying workflow.
Cool. I believe we have some questions in the chat as well. I think we can maybe answer a couple more of those. Yeah, we have about 10 minutes left on the. We tried to get through these slides and demo part as quickly as possible because we anticipated that for a webinar like this, we would have a lot of questions. So actually, I think we have some repeat questions over here in the chat. Yeah, I think most of the questions in the chat have been answered as well. They're duplicate questions that were submitted in the Q&A section as well. So we have a question over here. I'm not sure if we covered it. Does the automated chat, after the automated chat, does the customer service team get to know while the customer is filling up info? So yes, we do have an email note. There are two ways you can ensure that your customer service team knows that a chat's been filled or is in the process of being filled. We first have email notifications for both partial chats and complete chats. So if someone is in the process of filling out a chat, your customer service team can get a notification that someone is currently in the process of having a chat. Once the chat is complete, also all you have to do is add the customer service team's email, the required email in the, I believe it is the configure section. Yeah, we have an email notification system here and it gets sent to them automatically. The other way that you can get your customer service team to know that a conversation has happened is again through our data integration process, which can either happen through the APIs that we were talking about over here, where we integrated with Karza in the chat flow. Or it can happen through our integration section, where again we are linked to several apps where you can send the data automatically to your CRM or your ticketing system or wherever your customer service team is currently operating.
Yeah. So also to rephrase Arnav in a very simple sense, it's also the fact that whenever your CRM systems, whether I'm applying through a normal mobile application or through the website, the way it actually works at the back end is that it's effectively just the name, address, DOB, document one, document two that gets pushed into the CRM. Is the exact same thing that will happen with TARS as well.
Totally.
To answer Gautam's question with respect to from a lending perspective, we also need to verify the date of birth on PAN and Aadhaar. So yes, so think of it this way, Gautam, that when you are actually receiving any kind of an information from the customer, so in the sample workflow which Arnav showed, we only took the PAN card number. In case if you want, you can actually ask the customer to simply click the photograph of the PAN card. We will do three things. Number one, detect that yes, the document that is actually has been uploaded is a PAN card and it's not like a photo of a chair or a table. Second, we will read the data in terms of the name, date of birth, date of issue, the father's name, as well as the PAN card number, and then re-verify the name, PAN, and the DOB vis-a-vis the income tax database as well to reconfirm all three data sets are actually matching the records held by the respective government divisions. And then automatically, so what I can always do is I'll also drop in my mail ID in the chat box, in the chat room as well, for you to be able to reach out to me for any kind of specific queries if required. Uh, and at the same time, of course, for us to be able to connect and answer well
Yep.
specific queries, right? So my email ID is gaurav@karza.in. And sorry, I see one more question. Um, yeah.
Yeah, so we have a question. We have a couple of more questions. Can the Karza APIs, this is for you, Gaurav, can the Karza APIs calculate CIBIL score or credit score?
So actually, Sibyl's already computes the score. What we can definitely do for you is enable the Sibyl soft pull API. As a lending institution, you typically would be having a hard pull API by any of the four credit bureaus. But yeah, to answer your question, we can help you guys with a Sibyl, CRIF, Experian, or an Equifax credit score as well, assuming the customer's explicit consent is being obtained, just as how we took it in case of Aadhaar as well. Um, yeah, I think the next question's for you, Arnav.
Yep. So the way it works on a website is there are two ways you can integrate it into your website. One is as a conversational landing page, which is what we saw over here, where the chatbot lives on a standalone URL. The second way that you can integrate the chatbot is on the page itself through a widget. So for example, if I go to the TARS website, actually, we have a widget deployed. So I can show you what that looks like. Sorry, when I put the screen share on Zoom, I was talking to Gaurav about this yesterday when we were coordinating. When I put the screen share on Zoom, my Chrome tends to move a little slowly. But over here, as you can see, we have a chatbot widget in the bottom right corner where the chatbot pops up right on the web page without the user leaving the web page. Now, the beauty of this chat widget is that it can actually link with, it can have a deep integration with the rest of your website. So if you click on buttons on your website, it can open up a custom part of the chat in the widget itself. There's actually a third way you can integrate it into your websites, which just came to mind, which is that you can actually integrate it as an iframe into your website as well. So it won't necessarily be hidden behind a widget. It will be on the web page itself. And actually, we have a chatbot template library, a subtle plug over here, which you can use to create your own chatbots. But if we jump into one of these chatbots, you can see that the chatbots are integrated directly into the web page over here as an iframe. So that's the third way you can integrate it into your website. Let's see. I don't see any new questions coming up over here. If we missed any of your questions, feel free to drop them in again. We'd be more than happy to answer them. But we're coming up to the end of our time over here. We have about 5 minutes left, I believe.
I see one question that if the chair, if it is actually the picture of a chair, will the chatbot be able to detect and tell the user that it's not a valid picture? I mean, yes, basically the way it would work is that the chatbot will reply back saying that, hey, the document that you've uploaded is not a valid PAN card. And that can be true even if it's actually a picture of the PAN card, but it's completely hazy, right? And we will like automatically be able to know that, okay, this while you sent a document of the PAN card, but the picture is not clear enough. So automatically we can actually tell the customer to re-click the same image so that we can actually read the data and confirm that, yeah, these documents are completely valid. I also see another question with respect to where are these numbers saved, and is it TARS or is the bank's APIs? So the PAN card and okay. So from an audit trail perspective, number one, the PAN card number can be saved, the Aadhaar number can never be saved. So if you were a part of the demo, you would have also seen that when the customer is actually inputting the Aadhaar number, it is not visible. It's just as how asterisks, or basically it's treated akin to a password. Second, however, is that when you receive the XML file from the backend, it contains the masked Aadhaar number. If you are a bank, then definitely we can actually host this completely on your premises. Both the Aadhaar API that actually interacts with the chatbot, as or what Arnav can confirm, the entire chatbot itself, if it can actually be hosted on the bank's cloud or the bank's premises itself.
I believe I'll need confirmation from my tech team who is on who's on our chat with us right now. But I believe we do have on-domain deployment as an option.
Yeah. Yeah, but specifically for Aadhaar, we can definitely do this on domain. We've done this
Yeah.
for quite a few
Yes.
banks and NBFCs
Yes,
already.
definitely. Yep. More questions over here. It does not look like we have any more questions over here. I think we can call it good over there. I always love the webinars where we get a lot of engagement at the end, because that makes them, obviously, it tells us that you guys are actually getting some value out of this webinar. So we appreciate you guys joining us today. Gaurav, I appreciate you joining us in as a co-host. It was, I think, a pretty good webinar in terms of sharing a new way to do a old process. We will be sharing the recording of this webinar with you guys after the webinar is done. It takes us a little bit of time to process the actual recording. Zoom takes a little bit of time, but once we get the recording process, we'll upload it and send it to you guys immediately, so that you guys have a copy which you can rewatch whenever you guys want. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Gaurav, for co-hosting
Thank
this
you so
with
much,
us.
Arnav and team. Thank you guys. Thank
It
you so
was great.
much.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.